Welcome. So this is Principles of Macroeconomics for the spring of 2025. My name is Jeremy Chiquette. I'll be your instructor. Um, I have a PhD in economics. I studied macroeconomics exclusively, which I guess has me fairly, well positioned to be able to teach a course in macroeconomics. Um, Now, because I've got a PhD, yes, I am a doctor. You don't have to call me doctor. In fact, please just call me Jeremy. Mr. Chiquette, please don't do that. Dr. Chiquette, no. Professor Chiquette, especially not. I'm not a professor. So I am adjunct faculty here at Tennessee Tech University. This course is taught entirely online. I don't have an office at Tennessee Tech. I've never actually even been to the campus. So yeah, naturally, I don't have office hours because I don't have an office there. If you do need to talk, just email me. We can set something up. I'm more than happy to set aside some time to meet with you. Um, so I guess a little bit more about me really quickly. Yeah, I've got my PhD from Clemson. I graduated 5 years ago, smack dab in the middle of COVID. So that was fun, really defending my dissertation on Zoom. But I focused in monetary, economics, growth and development, and international finance. Really, three, the major fields of study in macroeconomics, just as a discipline overall. Um, and yeah, I've been teaching here as adjunct faculty since 2020. Now, the book for the semester is Macroeconomics on NyQuil. It's actually just a bunch of notes that I typed up for the course. I started typing it up probably about 7 or 8 years ago. The first time I taught macro, I actually used a physical textbook, and I didn't really like it. There was a lot of bloat in there. There's a lot of crap they just didn't really need. So I just typed up stuff that I thought was important and figured I would just assign that. Saves you guys a couple $100 and a lot of information that just isn't always super important. Now, there may also be some other readings that I assign. I'll post them on iLearn. I'll let you know well in advance before I have any expectations of you being able to answer questions about them or anything like that. So, description of the course. What is macroeconomics? Well, economics is split up into really two different like fields or subdisciplines, or two different little subgroups. Um, the first is microeconomics, and that's economics done at the micro level, how individual households, firms, and industries all behave within their markets, how they respond to various policy changes, things like that. Macro, on the other hand, is big picture. So micro's like little picture. Macro is big picture. Macro is stuff like, okay, how does the overall economy of the United States behave? If there's some policy change that comes through, whether it's a fiscal or monetary policy thing, we'll learn all about that later. How is the economy going to respond? And after it happens, how did the economy respond? We can always go back and look, looking at historical data and see how things have changed so that we can get a pretty good idea as to how things will be responding in the future. Um, so we're going to be learning about stuff like national output, gross domestic product, prices, or really the change in prices, inflation, unemployment. That one's pretty obvious. Either you're employed or unemployed. And it's going to be split up through, once we learn that, we're going to learn about long run growth and development and then business cycle stuff. Um, and we're going to learn about how all these different things like work together. So you're going to be learning really some of the basic ideas behind the current macroeconomic models that are being used, minus all the math. And you're going to learn how to analyze the real world economy. So hopefully by the culmination of this course, you'll be able to go, oh, hey, the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates, so this and this and this should happen from there. Uh, if there's some huge tax cut, you should hopefully be able to go, okay, cool. Well, there's a tax cut. The models tell me that this and this and this should happen, or this and this and this should happen. Um, and you'll learn really, where the points of contention are between the different schools of macroeconomic thought. Now, for learning objectives, just I don't know, just do the work. Um, Watch the videos, pay attention, take notes, do the homework, take the exams, and you should be fine. Shouldn't be any issues there. Now, I do reserve the right to make changes to the course, but of course, if I do, I'll make sure that you're known or that you're notified well in advance. Grading and assignments, all that fun stuff. Um, This is pretty simple. 25% of your grade will come from homework. 50% of your grade will come from 4 exams. So each exam is 12.5% of your grade. And then the final exam is 25% of your grade. And I'm going to follow the standard, A, B, C, D, F scale. Um, Now, I will, again, if the course demands it, just the way things go, grades are what they are. I may alter my grading strategy, but again, I'm under no obligation to do so, and I will keep you informed of any changes. However, any changes that I make will be strictly to your benefit, not to your detriment or anything like that. Um, and after every homework and exam, your course score on iLearn will be updated so you can always know where you stand in the class. Um, so there's, I guess, for each little sub assignment here, let's talk about homework first. I'm going to try to assign 1 or 2 assignments before every exam. Each assignment is going to be, um, well, I guess, relatively more difficult than the exam. The idea is if you can do the homework, then you can definitely do the exams. So they're going to be pretty good practice overall for each exam that you take. There's going to be some math in there, nothing you haven't seen before. There's not going to be any calculus. It's really just going to be like some algebra or some arithmetic, stuff like that. Um, and it's really because macro is a very quantitative field of study. If you get into macroeconomic theory and stuff like that, you'll see it's, I mean, very, very quantitative. It's like just pure math, basically. Um, and so, I want you to be aware of that. And I want you to realize that, there will be times you have to do some math, but you're not going to have to do anything really wild. There's not going to be any programming or anything like that. The problem sets are going to be due on the date listed on the assignment. I understand, things happen. If things do happen, just let me know. They'll be due at midnight. After that, I'm really under no obligation to accept your homework for a grade. It doesn't mean that I won't. It just means that if you ask me, don't be surprised if I say no. Now, when you work on these, print them out, write your answers on them, and scan them. So it's going to be a PDF, download the PDF, print it out, write your answers on it, scan it, and then submit that scanned file as one individual file with all the pages in there for me to go over. Um, Now, if you've got some kind of like touchscreen, like iPad or a Samsung Galaxy Note, whatever the heck it is, and you want to write your answers on that, hey, that's totally cool with me. I just need to see the answers written on the assignment that I posted, not on your own paper. So don't just go, hey, I'm going to type up a Microsoft Word document with the answers there because that's not going to fly. I'm not going to accept it. And I will be taking 20 points off of every incorrect assignment submission. So please make sure that you get everything done properly. Now, there is one other way that you can submit this, and it's through LaTeX. Now, I use LaTeX when I type up all of my stuff. So this syllabus, the homework, the exams, even the book I use were all typed up using LaTeX. It's like an open source document prep software. It's really, really good stuff. If you're going into any kind of a quantitative field or like any kind of STEM field, anything like that, for your major, LaTeX is really not a bad skill to have. Also, if you plan on doing any kind of computer coding, like programming, anything like that, having LaTeX first will actually kind of help you out a little bit. So you kind of learn, basic like pseudocode, little commands and stuff like that. I actually learned LaTeX before I went to learn R, MATLAB, and Python. So that can hopefully tell you some cool things about it. Now, I encourage you to use LaTeX again because it's a very valuable skill to have throughout your academic careers. I'll be posting the PDF and the tech file. The way it works is there's a tech file. You'll type everything out in there, and it typesets to a PDF. That PDF is what I'll be posting. That if you don't want to use LaTeX, just print the PDF. If you want to use LaTeX, you also download and install LaTeX, and then you can open the tech file and type your answers in there directly. If you do that, post the PDF it typesets to, the tech file that you typed everything in, post both of those on iLearn as your assignment submission. If you do that, I'll give you an extra 10 points for every assignment. This works for both problem sets and exams. but I have to be able to get your tech file to typeset on my own computer in order for you to get those 10 points. And that, if you can get it to typeset on your computer, it'll typeset on mine. The only caveat to that is if there are pictures that I've posted in the PDF, obviously, because there's like a path for the picture. It's not just, hey, here's a picture you copy and paste in there. In that event, don't worry about the picture path. Delete that, type everything else up, submit that. I'll know what's going on. I'll be very aware of that, so don't even need to explain that because, well, it's something I'm very, very familiar with. Okay, so the exams. Exams will be submitted the exact same way that the problem sets are. Print it out, write your answers, scan it, post it as one file, or write your answers on like an iPad or something on top of the PDF that you've got, or you can do LaTeX. Any of those three work for me. But the thing is, I need to be able to see it in the original format that I posted with your answers in the spaces underneath, just as if it were, I gave you a physical copy to write your answers on. So exams. 4 in-class exams, 1 final. Each exam covers 1 section from the course, and there's 4 different sections we're covering. There's intro to macro, so that's going to be learning about gross domestic product, inflation, unemployment, things like that. That exam is going to be on February 6th. So I'll post the exam a week before February 6th, and you've got 1 full week to work on it. The next section is economic growth and development. That is really long-run growth stuff. So it's like, how do economies go from being dirt poor to really rich? Because every economy, every country that you've seen, heard of, been to, whatever, they all started out poor. Literally every part of human civilization at one point was super poor. And now not every part of human civilization is super poor. And the question is, how did we get there? How do some countries get really rich? How are some countries richer than others? Why are some countries still not really all that rich? Economic growth and development is the part of macroeconomics that really answers that question. That exam will be February 27th. And then once we're done with that, we cut into business cycle macro. And that's going to be the part of macroeconomics that you're probably most familiar with prior to taking this course. That's going to be, okay, we go into a recession. How did we get into a recession? Why are we in a recession? What is going on that causes us to be in one? How do we get out of one? And how do we make sure that whatever got us in there in the first place doesn't happen again, if it's possible? And that's a pretty expansive field of macroeconomics. So I got it split up into 2 different groups. The first part of business cycle macro, that exam is April 3rd. That's just going to be basic business cycle, like stylized facts with a simple business cycle model. April 18th will be the 4th exam, and that covers the second section of business cycle macro, which is really an extension on the simple business cycle macro model that you learned in the first section. Now that is, once we are finished with exam 4 on April 18th, the course is technically over. And the only thing you'll need to worry about is the final exam. Now, if you have an A by the end, once I've graded exam 4, if your final score is an A walking into the final exam, you are exempt from the final. You don't have to take it. If you do have to take the final for any reason, basically whether if you have an 89.4 or below, I'm going to require you to take the final. And even if it's an 89.4, I know you're going to be like, well, I'm super close. Can you make an exception? No exceptions. If I make an exception for one, I do it for all. And there's got to be a hard line somewhere. So if you're really close, but you're not quite at an 89.5, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take the final exam. Now, if you do take that final, the nice thing is, if your final exam is higher than what your lowest exam score was, I replace your lowest exam with the score from the final. So if your lowest exam is like a 50 and your final exam is, I don't know, like a 95, well, then that 95 replaces the 50 of your, in your 4 exams, and then it also sticks as your final exam as well. So as long as you do better than your worst exam on the final, then it can only help your grade. It's not going to do anything to hurt it or keep it where it is, hopefully. Um, so just really quickly, I'll kind of go through what you can expect from the course. Um, so this is what we're going to be learning for each section. There's the introduction to macro, it's principles of macro, GDP, unemployment, inflation, stuff like that. Um, economic growth and development, we're really going to be learning about the solo growth model. That's like the basic, like introductory model for economic growth and development in macro. You're going to learn a little bit of math going into that, like fixed points and steady states, but it's really just so that you can understand what the steady state behavior is, what it means, and why it's being used. Then we got business cycle macro one. This is an introduction to business cycles. You're going to learn about like the different schools of economic thought, like, the classical, the Keynesian, new classical, monetarist schools. Don't expect to learn anything about like the, God, what are they? The Austrian school of thought or like a Marxist school of thought. I won't be teaching either of those. Those are pretty extremes, both on, the far left and then, far right of the economic, I guess what, spectral divide or whatever. And it's just really not anything that interesting from those. The really good stuff comes from what's kind of in the middle. So first we're going to learn about the real business cycle model. Then we're going to learn about shocks to the real business cycle model. That's kind of like a stepping stone into the new Keynesian model, which is really it's a similar idea as the real business cycle model, but it's got some more realistic assumptions that are being made that I think actually lend credibility to actual use in real world economic analysis. And then from there, we're going to learn like the shocks to the new Keynesian model and how that is different from the real business cycle model. And then we're going to learn about the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. That's actually what my dissertation was on, at least 2/3 of my dissertation. And then we're going to learn about like the quantitative easing that was done in 2008. And then the COVID-19 economic responses, because that's really the next big thing that a lot of macroeconomic research is going to be focused on, at least for business cycle related stuff, is how government and monetary policy responses really affected economic recovery, whether they sped it up, whether they slowed it down, things like that, and how various economic indicators like inflation have been affected since, because we're 5 years out of the pandemic now. Well, I guess 4 years out of the pandemic, 5 years since the start of the pandemic, and things really still haven't gotten back to normal. Our inflation is still not where it needs to be, and so there's a lot of interesting stuff around that. Finally, at the end of this stuff, academic integrity, don't cheat. It's that simple. If I catch you cheating, I'm going to escalate it to the furthest extent of the law, so to speak. You have to read the Tennessee Tech policy on academic misconduct. And finally, disability accommodations. If you have a disability, you require accommodations, contact the Accessible Education Center. And I am willing to work with you, and not just willing, also required, but even if the requirement wasn't there, I'd still be willing to work with you in any way that I possibly can in order to make sure that you get the best educational outcome that you can possibly achieve. So yeah, if you have any questions about any of this, of course, please feel free to email me. I am always happy to reply. I tend to reply within the business day. Generally speaking, if it's after business hours, I'm married, I got a family and stuff. I try not to spend too much time outside of business hours on this stuff. But if you do have any questions, I just email me. I'll get back to you within the day or, the next business day. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you decide to stay in the course. It should be pretty fun. I've always enjoyed teaching this class. Really any kind of macroeconomic stuff I enjoy teaching. But yeah, I always enjoy teaching principles of macro, so hopefully that kind of shines through when you start watching the video lectures and stuff like that. So thank you for watching, and let's have a great semester.